The Norwegian Method.
I'm KB Kristian Blumfeldt, Olympic and 3-time world champion.
I'm Dr. David Lippman, a health and human performance specialist, and welcome to the Norwegian Method podcast.
The Norwegian Method.
Welcome back to the Norwegian Method podcast. Joining me today, Kristian Blumenfeld, newly minted champion from Ironman Texas, back in his home in Norway with a beautiful backdrop. Mate, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was a great one. 1 month in the States and like in terms of Oceanside, felt like good, strong in the race before, and just like a bummer with the puncture. But then to be able to get it out on race day in Texas was fantastic.
Well, yeah, that's a well said. Now, we saw some Instagram stories. We obviously saw your puncture. Do you guys have a total number of punctures you had for the trip in the US?
So I got one in the race in Oceanside. Then we got another car puncture on the car in Texas. Then I got another one on my rear wheel. As I was actually filming with the Battery Bros. So I was like on the topic. I just had a puncture in Oceanside and another puncture we bring on with just bad lucks. And then Gustav has sort of had 3 issues in the race in Texas. First, he got it was flat already in transition, so he had to get it pumped up as he was leaving transition, and then I think he had to swap wheel once, and then he finished off with basically no air. So is that 6?
Yeah, that's brutal. Okay, well, hopefully that's all of the bad luck out, and you guys can continue. But yeah,
not just we've used all of our puncture for this year, but also the next 2 years. So now we are ready to just have tailwind and everything go our way.
I love that. Well, let's talk about the month. How was the month there? How was the training? How's everything going?
I would say good. Both in Sierra Nevada, the training went smoothly, and then it was like those I was wondering how that would pan out in the race. In first in Oceanside over the half distance, and I would say I was performing well there, a little bit further down in the water than I was hoping for. But then I was easily able to bridge that up on the bike and also go in a position where I could start putting some power in, and felt quite strong on the bike. Just 2 weeks or 3 weeks 2 weeks before that, I was up in Sierra Nevada together with Body Rocket as well, and also with Sam, a bike fitter from the UK, who helped me to bring sort of the CDA numbers, what we saw there, and into a strong, solid, rideable position. And I felt like that was having a good, strong position in Oceanside, and until I got the puncture, and even after that, I was able to ride solid and run quite well off it. So I felt the first week went well in terms of responding on the training and the racing, and then we had 2 sort of bigger weekends of more Ironman specific training as we went to Texas. So 1 week out from the race in Oceanside, we did was it maybe 150k. I think it was 4 hours of race pace, and then we run 30k off that. So it was a 6.5 hours of brick session, and was pleased with how the power was looking like and how stable I felt. And I was even able to run the last 9k there at 3:26 pace, and I felt I was thinking that don't overcook it now. Just don't try to strive it for 40k this weekend. I have another weekend of training, so we sort of stopped it there and called it enough after 30k. And then we used the weekdays to do a little bit higher intensity. So typically Wednesday was more threshold or a little bit more making sure that the power was still a little bit higher, and then we used the next Saturday, Sunday again, so 1 week out from the race, to do more specific workload. And again, Ironman pace on the bike. I think we did, was it 170k or something on the bike, and then the next day we did a 30k run. But that one was a little bit more controlled. So I was running with Gustav and Casper for the whole run there, and I felt that it was very stable, and like my heart rate was low, I was breathing well, and I was maybe doing a bigger taper than normal in terms of race week. So I was really bringing down the volume as I was feeling a little bit tired coming into the race week. So yeah, pleased with how I was waking up and how I was feeling on the race day.
And how are you finding balancing the sort of faster with the longer stuff? Because I heard you talk about potentially training going forward, and we'll talk a bit about what that will look like in a while. But you sort of mentioned going back to some higher intensity to then go and extend again from there. I guess, how are you finding sort of the more control you have over that, and balancing the sort of higher and longer duration stuff? Given you've just won an Ironman and you fast, you didn't just win it, you won it fast, and you still have so much time between now and Nice.
Yeah, so that's the tricky thing, especially like, or like both being able to balance it over like the next, is it like 3-4 months until this or something? But also like within the month going into Texas, as an example, like, because you will feel that it's getting harder to hit those higher power numbers, but you will also feel way more like stable, and you can just keep the power up for the longer sessions. But so you're trading off, and you feel like you're slowing one in one way and getting weaker, but you're also getting stronger on the other side of it. So it's more like being able to not get too slow twitched, transformed too early. So trying to slow down some of the response, and that's also like now going into Frankfurt as an example in, is it like 6 weeks time. I think it will be too much to do too much of arm specific work going into that one. So then that's probably going to be more extensive threshold work based, and just hoping that will be enough for Frankfurt, and then it will be like more arm and build going into Nice, because I think it's important to still be able to have a very good solid threshold, both pace, no, both power, and also being able to stay there for a long duration.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about the race, mate. How were you feeling before it? Were you feeling confident? I mean, most people had you pinged as, a race favorite. I think you like that. You're one of the few that really enjoys being the favorite rather than the underdog. And yeah, how are you feeling going in? You must have been confident given how well the training's going, given your run in Oceanside.
Yeah. So I felt quite confident going into the race, and again, like I felt a little bit more tired the last week, or like 7-8 days going into the race, compared to how I felt after Oceanside. So that's why I was bringing down the volume even more and doing a little bit more control on the easy stuff, and just getting that energy back. And I trusted myself that I will be sharp and ready for race day. So I felt confident, didn't stress too much about it, and then going into race day itself, like I felt super good in the water. Like I felt it was probably like too large pack on the swim in order for the front guys to really be picking up the pace. So as I came into sort of a great position after like a K or so, I felt that the last 2.8k was well below threshold, and I was able to just relax and save my energy there. And uh, actually, the evening before I got the package from Trimtex with the calf sleeves. So I tried them like on the hotel room. I was like practicing putting on the calf sleeves as quick as possible, to see how much time I was losing by potentially putting them on in transition. Because in Frankfurt last year, I put them on in transition, and I didn't really time it. And then I tried to do the same in Kona, but in Kona I was stressing too much. So I would like put them on, and I was like ripping it off, or like I was able to rip, like it was like broke off. So I ended up using maybe 20 or 30 seconds trying to put them on and ending off just, okay, I'm not going to do it. And I throw them away again. So I was, the evening before, after checking in all my gears in transition, I got the package with the new calf sleeves from Trimtex and also pass. And I just thought, okay, no, if I put on the socks first, it's probably easier to put the calf sleeves over the socks. So I'm going to put on socks and calf sleeves in transition. So I have to run to transition now and just change everything in my bags. So I'll run back again just before they close the transition and swapped it out. So yeah, I had a good swim and then decided to put on the calf sleeves and the socks in T1 and was hoping to not lose too much time. And I was actually able to get out of transition just next to Gustav and in front of Casper still by putting on the calf sleeves and socks. So I think I had a great transition there and was able to ride myself easily up to the front again. And there I was just trying to let the other guys sort of dictate the pace a little bit because we were still like a larger pack and I wanted to jump across if there came some attacks on the bike. And I think it was Kristian who was doing most of the work in the beginning of the bike. But again, we were like 15 guys behind, and with the race ranger, it's in one way it's easier for some guys to just stay very close because you have the orange and the blue and the red lights. So if you're closer than 12 meters, the bike in front will start blinking red. So then you gotta make the pass, but you can use the lights to just stay at the 14, 15 meters gap to the guy in front. So it makes the whole pack behind like being able to ride legally on the limit. And so and I realized that the guys behind would probably save a lot of energy. So I wouldn't cook myself in the front by putting my head down in the first position or like in the first but by doing all of the work. So I was more sitting there in second, third position and trying to wait for the attack from the stronger guys because I also felt quite confident in my run. And suddenly Gustav came up and he managed to open up a little gap to the field. I was then in third position and then I tried to jump across and sort of create a little bit more surge on the bike, but then suddenly everyone else was also jumping across. So
I saw you look back and you were a bit surprised because I saw Gustav go to the front and you sort of went with him, and then all of a sudden you looked back and you went, hang on a second, there's no one here. What's going on? So was the goal there to push off from there and then you couldn't, or was it sort of...
Yeah, so then we tried to put on like a little bit like 5 or 10 or 15 minutes of surge well above race pace or like to see if we could break it up. But then it was also headwinds, a little bit easy to stay behind each other. So then the thing is, if you open up a gap, there's probably someone in 7th, 8th position who was then thinking, I'm going to jump across here as well. So it all kind of came together. And we were riding like normal pace also on the way back again. So the course was like 20 miles, I think, out to the loop, and it was 2 loops, and it was 10 miles back again. So we had like 2 loops, and every time on the way back it was tailwind, and in the tailwind there was a little bit more steady riding. But then people was realizing that it's way too easy to stay in the pack, and it's costing way too much to be in the front. So it seemed like we were all just sitting and spinning easily, and then sort of waiting for the guys behind to catch. And when the stronger riders like Ulbach cut in and Camworth came across, then we also was starting to ride on the second lap, and then we were then riding together with the age groupers who were on their first lap, and that was creating a little bit situation where it was difficult to keep an overview of who is where. So like in the beginning, I could see the whole line. Like if you're in 8th position, you can see that there's like 7 guys in front. But suddenly then I was caught in the position where I couldn't see suddenly where Gustav and Robert and Worth were. And suddenly I was like 40 seconds down, and I really had to put my head down and bridge up again to those guys. And that was also in a situation where Gustav suddenly had a puncture. So I was catching him before I was catching the front guys again. And I managed to catch them just before the last turning point before we were heading back again, maybe with 60k to go. And from there on, the field was really stretched out, and some guys was able to ride back, come across again, and I was then riding together with the front 4 or 5 guys. But then with 10k to go on the bike, just like after we exited the highway again and doing like some little bit technical thing or some 90-degree turns and under some tunnels, then my right quad start cramping up again. A little bit like happening in Milwaukee 2 years ago, and I was just thinking, oh, I gotta get control on this. If the quads escalate now, it's going to be it can ruin my race. But if I can get it under control, I should easily be able to run down everyone in front of me. So I had to then give the front guys like 15-20 seconds gap, and just like be able I just had needed to stand up a little bit more, go in higher gear, stretch out a little bit, and sort of put a little bit of pressure with my hand on the quad, and somehow managed to uh, get control over the cramping, and just was very careful when I was jumping off the bike that I didn't put my front quad in any position that could damage it, like in terms of bringing back the cramping. So was a little bit careful coming off the bike, and then I could also see the front guys that I was like 15-20 seconds behind. Quick transition because I already had the socks on and felt amazing from the beginning on the run, and felt that yes, it was warm, like the sun was shining, but I wasn't cooked. So I started running maybe 20 seconds behind Camworth and Thompson, I think, and then I had Antonio Lopez maybe 10 seconds behind me, and I knew that Antonio had been running well in the past in warm races, so I was sort of aware of him. He caught up to me, and he was sort of dictating the pace for the first 2 or 3k before I went to the front again, and I felt when I was sort of sitting behind him and running on his shoulder, then I felt that the pace he was setting was quite comfortable. And when I then went to the front again, and I could listen to how he was breathing and how he was like uh, sort of breathing, I felt that this should be a comfortable one, like, or I should be having the control now.
The Norwegian method.
We have been using Plasmade for the last 18 months, and what I love the most is how it helped me get ready for the hardest sessions. A hard session is tough in itself, but with Plasmade it just gives me that little bit extra that helps me perform every single time. We use Plasmade approximately 40 minutes before training and sometimes before flights. After using Plasmade, I feel like the oxygen is just more available in my muscles. I felt like every single breath is utilized more. Alongside their orange, strawberry and watermelon flavors, Plasmade have launched a new delicious pineapple citrus flavor. Visit plasmade.co.uk and use the code NM15 for 15% off your order.
The Norwegian method.
Yeah. So, a couple of clarification points on the bike there. You're obviously you're aware of Cam and everyone else coming through. Was that something you were waiting for, thinking, listen, I'm going to sit into this pack, and then when they come through, I'll jump on with them and we can go off the front, or if they go off the front, I'll follow them or something like that? Is that kind of the thinking there? Or it's just, we'll sit in, it's not worth going off by myself, but if these Uber bikers come past me, I'll jump onto the back of them?
The thing is, I think we were actually increasing the gap to the Uber bikers the first 60k, and they came very quickly back again. So I think that's simply because we were all just the power was just too low in the front group, and we were just like sitting up and sort of waiting almost. So for me, it was more like it wasn't my responsibility to try to do any damage on the bike course when I felt so strong on the run. So it was more like if other people want to do something, it's their responsibility. As I felt very confident that I should be the strongest guy on the run, and I also felt like, or I knew that at some point they will come by, and then Gustav was more aware than I was, so I saw he was like going by, and I thought that if there is a big gap opening up, I will bridge up. But I just realize it's a bit too late.
Yeah. And were you very aware of Antonio being in your bike group because he was probably your biggest threat on the run? Was that something you were actively tracking and keeping aware of?
Yeah, I saw him for most of the time, and especially after I bridged up to. So after I had to do that maybe 20 minutes of search or like at a high power to bridge up again to the front guys, I also saw that he was on my wheel and he also came up. So I was definitely aware that he was there.
Yeah. And let's chat a little bit about the cramping, mate. Any thoughts on what's going on? I mean, obviously it's a use thing, but is it a bike position thing? Because your bike position now is very different to what it was in Milwaukee. If you ask me, and very uneducated, I'll say that on bike positions, but nonetheless, from the outside, it looks like it's quite a different position. And I'm sure this is something that is front of your mind when you're considering bike positions: is how does this feel to run off? I don't want another cramp like Milwaukee.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not the cramping isn't an issue on the run in that sense. Like it's not the running muscle that it is irritating. It's more like I think it's the phase where you're like pulling up on the pedal, and it's more like the back end of the pedal stroke that's uh, creating that tension. And I'm not feeling any issues at all when I'm running. It's a bit like in Milwaukee. The running itself is not the issue. It's more like the damage I got from the bike that I just need to sort of almost recover and get the blood flow going again before. So I'm using more, I think, the more the outside of the quads and the inside in that way. So, but yeah, maybe it's a little bit the fact that the overall power was quite low on the race, but it was more like on and off, on and off, on and off, and that could have been the issue, or the fact that it's the first long race and I just need to practice more time in the air position.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a good way to have practiced. It's good day's practice. Let's put it that way. In T2, it's quite a long run. Was that something that you were concerned about with the cramping, or was it okay? You were sort of like, okay, yeah, it's not too worrying.
I was more concerned that if like when if I went off the bike and I took like using my right foot and bring it over the saddle, that could be like a situation where I was cramping up, and it could happen a bit like you could see with Taylor Nib when she crashed over her bike. So I think actually in coming off the bike, I was actually using it more the female way, where you can do on like those old typical bikes. We can just take the foot on the inside because I don't have any top tube. So I just brought it. So I just brought it between the frame, the foot when I was exiting or like dismounting the bike, and early on I felt like okay, it's no discomfort in my quads when I start running in transition. So the few times where you can sort of accelerate the cramping coming off the bike is like when you're bringing foot over the saddle, and also when you're putting on the shoes, because then you're like stuck in one position, or if you're sitting down. And I didn't feel a cramp at any of those points, so then I felt that it's not going to be a issue with the quads. And then I felt a little bit more like maybe after 35K or so that it was a little bit like tickling in the hamstring in terms of cramping, but that wasn't even close to what it was on the quads on the bike.
Okay. You were quick through T2. You were the fastest of the day from what I saw.
Yes.
Obviously, we talked about your socks and your calf sleeves. On the calf sleeves, are they specifically made for your growing calves, or are they a standard size? Are they available to the public?
They're actually not made for my size, or like it's not personal. So I'm using the M size. So I think that's something I will bring up or tell them when I'm getting. I will go to Kristiansand in 2 or 3 weeks, and I think I need a little bit larger sort of elastic band on the top, because I feel like so when I practiced the evening before in the race, or like on the hotel before the race, putting on the calf sleeves, I realized it was too tight. So I was actually like stretching out, like forcing them to get a little bit wider in the top in order to be able to put easier on. So that helped a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, not too much track running in your spikes then before then, because otherwise you'll pop those calf sleeves. But was it an intention of yours to come through T2 quickly, or was it just kind of you didn't want to dawdle, but you already had your calf sleeves and your socks on, so you were quick because of that?
Yeah, that was the only reason why I was quicker, I guess. And it's not like I'm gonna wait in transition either.
No, there's no one you want to wait for, especially when there's people ahead of you. And so you mentioned already on the run some of the stuff with Antonio. Like, was your thought, listen, I'll run with him, see where his pace is at, and then sit in comfortably unless it's too slow? Was it kind of same thing on the bike? Is he's got to win this? I don't have to win this.
It was more I was going out in a safe pace, and I didn't stress it the first 2K. So it's a little bit like you naturally sort of regroup after transition. So if you are 15, 20 seconds down, you do try to make sure that you're running a little bit quicker than the guy in front just to catch up. And instead of trying to answer that by trying to not let him catch up, I was just letting him catch up.
Yeah.
So, and then regroup, and then I was thinking that if I get company for the first 20-25K, that would be nice, because then also mentally it's going quicker by. So I get in Frankfurt last year, I was running quite, I would say, aggressive out of transition, but then also had to run the whole 42K by myself. So I was thinking that if we can do maybe 2K each in the front and just get the mileage, like letting the mileage run, then it's easier for my mind to get through the course. But I felt the pace I was setting was comfortably good, and then when he was in the front, the heart rate was even dropping a few beats. So I felt that yeah, I didn't mind taking the lead the whole run.
And do you say that? Is that something you discuss to him? You say, "Listen, mate, take a couple Ks. We'll rotate this," or is it kind of understood?
We didn't run too much together, so we would maybe have said it after 8 or 9 or 10K. But I was after he did sort of his second turn in the front, I think, of like another 2K. Then I just thought that okay, I'm just going. So I was just testing him a little bit and see if he would join me for a little bit higher pace, but then he gave me the small gap, and I thought that yeah, okay, let's just go
Let's
for it
go.
from here.
Yeah. And Cam Worth said something to you when you passed them. What did he say?
I got you, motherfucker. so then when we passed him on the run again, I just told him back, I gotcha.
You didn't bark at him this time, like you did previously with.
The barking is Joe Skipper.
Yeah,
So
no, I know.
I'm not a dog, but
Okay.
just replied, I gotcha.
I'm
But
sure
then
he.
I wanted to say so. So there was like one 90-degree or like a dead turn on the course next to the river where you could see each other. And on the first lap, the stretch was long enough so he could see me. But I wanted to tell him that this is the last time you see me. But I didn't.
I'm sure he enjoyed that greatly, and I'm sure you guys caught up afterwards. So we didn't actually see you move past Antonio. Was it as simple as you just sort of pushing a little bit and him not following? Because all we saw, we were probably watching an ad, and then all of a sudden there was just a gap, and he was just off the back and looking like he was struggling a bit. Was it as simple as that? You just went and then took off a bit?
Yeah, I think I just dropped the pace by like 10 or maybe even 15 seconds for 500 meters, and then the gap opened up, and I just tried to make sure that I was keep running a few seconds quicker than him. So I opened up maybe 50 seconds over 5K, and then
Yeah.
I think the next time it was 3.5 minutes, like 14K later. So I was from there on, I felt quite secure.
Yeah, for sure. There's all sorts of videos. I mean, well, the same video going around of you on social at the moment of you taking water from an aid station. That was like military precision. Talk us through that. Was that the plan? Is just get as much water as possible because it's a hot day? And I mean, how did you take 45 cups and drink them all?
Yeah, so that's like the tricky thing with when you're racing in heat condition, and that's to get enough liters of liquid, because typically I'm drinking like 2.5 liters per hour in heat, and maybe sweating, or maybe 2 liters, and I'm maybe sweating the same 2 liters per hour, and I was having one bottle with me from transition, so I was running with a 0.07 liters of actually double mixed Morton, so I had 160 grams.
The rocket fuel.
Yeah. The rocket fuel, but I had a double mixed, so it was like 160 grams of carbs in one bottle, and I was drinking that one with the first 3K maybe. So I got like a tons of carbs into the stomach early on. So for most of the aid station, it was more just getting the liquid in because I had enough carbs in the stomach. So, but it's difficult because the cups is not fully filled up even. It's like typically halfway filled up, and you can't spill it either. So you're getting like a few handful of or mouthful of drinks, and some of it goes like to cool yourself down. Half of it goes in your face and on your chest, and it's more like getting everything. A little bit of water, a little bit of the hydration stuff they're having, just because it's more liquid, and then a little bit of Coke and a little bit of water again, and some of it's like ice suddenly. And then they have even the cups with like grapes in it. So if you're grabbing wrong, you have suddenly having a cup of grapes. So you have to be a little bit careful with which cups you're picking up, because you don't want to eat any bananas or fruits out there on the course. Uh, but yeah, it's just important to get enough liquid in, and if you're not patient enough in the transition or in the aid station to get those cups, you might not feel it there, but you feel it 7-8 minutes later. So typically you slow down the pace a little bit because uh, yeah, the liquid you are not getting on board there, you will slow it down by minutes by the end of the race. And I think it was and I think it was like aid station every K and a half, 2K. So after like 7 minutes or so, there you have another aid station.
Yeah, yeah. The errors compound as you go along. They don't end it, and they get worse. Uh, you mentioned the 160 grams leaving well in transition. You mentioned little bits of nutrition. Did you take anything else on the run? Any gels or anything like that?
Yeah, and I also had the special needs or the special need bag on the run. So halfway through the run course, I got another 0.7 liter bottle where I also had 160 grams of carbs in it. So 2 of the Morton 320s, so very thick liquid. So that was also my main source of carbs. And then I took another 2 gels on the run. So that brings me up to like think I didn't complete both of the gels, but maybe like 360 grams of carbs on the run course, so quite high. And same on the bike. I was drinking a lot of thick mix of the Morton 320s.
Yeah, okay. And didn't lose any bottles or anything this time. All
I didn't
good.
lose any bottles. I didn't puke anything up. I didn't go to toilet any times. So yeah, that's also something I was pleased with.
That was going to
Like
be a question of mine. What's happened? How did you solve it?
So what we saw in Kona, or what maybe many people think, is that it wasn't like the nutritional issue from the race nutrition I was using. It wasn't like taking too much carbs, I think, but it was more like I think it was damage I got like down in the throat from already in St. George back in 2022 in May. So there I was quite sick in leading up to the race, and I guess I got like an irritation in the throat that I've been struggling with ever since. So after Kona, I went to the doctor and I got like a camera all the way down to the stomach, and they did some samplings down there as well, and they could see even on the video that it was a lot of sore in the throat, and I got some medicines to heal that, and yeah, it's at least for now it's been working well. Like I haven't puked since Hawaii, so that's actually the longest duration without puking in 3 years.
I mean, new records being set everywhere. That's great.
And yeah, so I was able to take a lot of carbs in.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, very high, probably around 160 in average during the whole day.
An hour.
Mm.
Yeah, okay. You were running along. There was a kid that you almost ran into on the camera. What I mean, I guess what happened there? He was just crossing in front of you, I think, and you almost ran into him.
Yeah, well, he just jumped out in front of the course. So luckily for him and for me that we didn't collide. So I tried to get the so behind me I had like a guy on a mountain bike who was like the bike leader, and I tried to get him to ride like in front instead and sort of clean the course instead. But he kept riding behind me instead of being in front. I think it would have been better if I had the lead guy on the bike riding maybe 20-30 meters in front and just making sure that people were aware that I was coming by, because especially on the first lap, people don't really see that it's the race course, but they just think it's like open road for walking or so. But yeah, luckily nothing happened.
Well, you're a bit too early there, mate. If you're a bit later, they would have known, right? It's because you were first. That's the problem.
That was the thing with Oceanside as well. The only reason why I went on the very right side of the course was because I was leading the race. So maybe a takeaway is that don't start leading the race too early.
The Norwegian method.
Morton's hydrogel technology encapsulates carbohydrates, making their gels and drink mix easy to consume and easy on the stomach. With no added colors, flavors, or preservatives, you get exactly what you need and nothing you don't. It's the fuel we rely on both trading and to execute on the race day. To get 20% off your next purchase on morton.com, simply enter the code TNMS2 at checkout. The code is applicable once per customer on all products except the Morton Bike Hub system. Valid until December 31st, 2025.
The Norwegian method.
Yeah, well, for sure. You looked pretty fresh finishing. I've heard you say you were pretty cooked in terms of you started to struggle at about 30 or 35K on the marathon. So which one is it, mate? Were you cooked or were you fresh? Because you look pretty good finishing.
Yeah, so I started feeling cooked after 35, 30, 34, 35K. But then when you're also leading with 7 or 8 minutes or 9 minutes, it's not like I was digging myself into the grave to run like 10 seconds quicker per K. So it's also easing off a little bit, both in terms of speeding up the recovery phase afterwards. Like I had 5,000 points already, and the only reason why I should like dig myself in the grave for the last 5K would have had to try to limit the Ironman Pro Series points to the guys behind me, and I thought that they deserve some points as well. So
I'm sure they're glad to hear that.
yeah, so hopefully it's not gonna be crucial by the end of the season. But yeah, so I was sort of easing off a little bit as I was getting harder as well. So post race, I was feeling okay, not overcooked.
Okay, because Patrick was on the coverage, and he said you were going to run 2:33. So basically, he was right. You just eased off a little bit early.
I think if I had someone chasing me down, I could have run 2:33. But but I guess the last 5 or 7K, no matter how fit you are, like you do start feeling it.
Yeah, it's not easy. Doesn't matter how fit you are. It's just you're just moving quicker if you're fitter.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, okay. And well, let's talk stuff going forward. You sort of talked a little bit about your programming plans. Anything else to add there in terms of plans for training and how it's going to look from now going forward?
Yeah, so now it's I think I will rest until Friday. So do mostly only easy training, and then maybe do a little bit of or maybe do a tougher swim Thursday or Friday, and then track session on Saturday, and then do a little bit of short intervals going into Aix-en-Provence. So just sort of do more from threshold to above to just to wake up the muscles again, and then after Aix-en-Provence, go back to more basic threshold training, higher power, higher torque, and higher intensity.
Yeah, and then that transition more to Ironman stuff post Frankfurt and leading into Nice.
Yeah, so post Frankfurt is going to be a big block in Font-Romeu again.
Yep.
We might go up to Font-Romeu before Frankfurt, but then we will go to Font-Romeu and then maybe traveling to Nice like 3 weeks out from the race. And there again, it's going to be the last 3 weeks is probably going to be very specific for the distance.
So you do Ironman over 2 days again, and then Yeah.
Probably. So something
Yeah.
like that. But until that, it's probably going to be trying to work with extending the threshold duration and being able to do the power for longer around. Maybe trying to work the threshold power pace from maybe 70 to 80 minutes to up to 90 or maybe even 100 minutes, and looking a little bit on how the power is and whether I need to lift it or stretch it.
Yep. And you are based in Bergen unless you go to Font before Aix-en-Provence. Is that correct?
Yes. So I will be based there for 2 weeks, and then Aix-en-Provence, and then another 2 weeks, and then out off to Font-Romeu.
Okay, very good. And how is life now that you're not with Gustav, given that he still doesn't have a phone?
He just got his phone actually. He bought it
He did.
in the Woodlands
Okay.
one of a few days, and yeah, he's back addicted to the phone again, but he's not addicted to replying to people. And for people around him, I guess it hasn't been any difference. They have been texting him as before, and they have got no response as before.
Your life
So
is easier though, because no one's contacting you to try and get to him.
yeah, but that's what they normally do. They text me, hi, can you tell Gustav that he should be there and there?
Oh, very good. I love that. And on Gustav and Casper, it's obviously cool to see. Obviously, Gustav struggled a little bit in Texas. You struggled a bit in Oceanside, but generally, I think you three as a group are doing really well in flying. That must be quite energizing as a training group. It must be enjoyable for that.
Yeah, especially with the beginning of like the three of us working as a group together and taking the responsibility ourselves. It's nice that at least the beginning is going well and smooth. It would be we would probably be questioning ourselves a little bit more if we had both failing in Oceanside and in Texas as a group. So yeah, definitely great to see Casper as an example qualifying for Nice. And now he can race without seatbelt in Frankfurt. Like it's always better to just get that qualification slot in, and then he can race for the win or try to be more aggressive in the race if he wants to in Frankfurt. And I think for Gustav's part, like it's not easy when you're getting like flat 3 times in the race. Like he swam pretty well. He was really good in training going into the race, and but then when you are getting sort of slowed down like that and being sort of put in a place where you maybe have to overbike, but you're still losing time because of the puncture, then those things might be the difference that he wasn't able to do a similar performance as he did in Oceanside. But his fitness that he was showing in training was actually some of the best I've ever seen, or not ever seen, but that I've seen since Hawaii 2022. So he's definitely on the way back to good old shape, and the fact that the World Championship will be in Nice, a course that he's really coping with well, is making him definitely a dangerous threat for that race, and that's good to see.
Yeah, I remember talking to you guys before Kona last year, and everything was about Nice. So it's cool to see those plans falling into place for him. It's cool to see him running so well. Bike was what it was. At least he got his first puncture changed really quickly. That was
Yeah,
impressive. That was
yeah,
really
but
cool.
yeah, I guess they were a little bit funny. Like for most of the ride on Saturday, I had like the neutral bike, motorbike next to me. He was like just there, and he was probably told like just make sure that if he gets a puncture, he's getting a quick one replaced. And then I saw Gustav when I caught him, he was like telling me just have a puncture. And then he spoke to the motorbike who was actually with me, and then suddenly, yeah, he got it swapped out quickly.
I love that. And it was obviously a fast day, right? You all like a bunch of you rode really fast. I think I can't remember how many of you rode under 4 hours. You did really well. Kat broke the record. It was a fast day. Is it something like that you need to break the record and be hold the fastest Ironman time again, or do you think you're probably on track for that anyway, given your shape?
I think Magnus' time for raw is 23, but then the Ironman time is still the one from Cozumel. But like it's different courses, and it's more like the race dynamic that's changing it all, and you're so dependent on like if it's a looped course, and if there is any age groupers on the course for second and third and fourth lap, it actually gets quicker for the pros, because then they are like sort of getting a little bit of draft from them as they're flying by. So in terms of times, it doesn't really matter. From like it's more the field you're racing, and like the field in Texas was quite strong. Like it was a lot of good guys there, and it's also more about the world championship titles for me. And I know that every time I'm racing against Magnus, and also when Sam Laidlow is in shape, they're always racing for the win. They're always trying to make it as hard as they can for me, and that's also exciting. So it's more important to beat Magnus in Frankfurt. I think he's racing Frankfurt head to head, than beating his time where he's been raced before. So yeah, Frankfurt is going to be important, but also Nice, which is definitely a course where you're not going to go fast, but it's a world championship title on the line.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got probably Patrick in Frankfurt if he can become healthy by then as well, if he can get himself healthy. So that'll be good. You'll have Patrick in the race as well. Obviously, Gustav will be there. So
yeah.
And
So Frankfurt is going to be a stacked field again. So that's really great with the Pro Series now, when they're sort of getting most of the pros sort of doing the similar calendar, like now Magnus and Martin was racing in South Africa instead of being in Texas. But yeah, at least Magnus will be back in Frankfurt, I think. And yeah, it creates like a faster field, and maybe it creates the fact that was like 17 guys or something who went under 8 hours in Texas.
yeah, it's
So
crazy.
and typically sub 8 few years ago was like enough to win the race. So it just because you're getting all of the best guys in the world coming together for the same races, and that's what we want to do. You know, you don't want to get to a you don't want to just get to a small race just to take the win and then hide from your competitors. You want to turn up and measure yourself against the best of the best.
Yeah. Well, talking about some of the people you've measured yourself against, I can't help but ask this question. London Marathon was yesterday. One of your ex rivals, Alex Yee, ran 2:11 there. I've heard you on more than one podcast. I don't know if I've ever asked you this question, at least on air. But what do you think about your marathon times? I think I've heard you say 2:10:30 was doable. I think that was the Olympic qualifier at the time. What do you think for you? Given, I mean, you're roughly 2:33 off the bike.
Yeah, I think typically the pace I can run on the half is like the half Ironman is something I can double. I think that's like realistically, and that's like in Oceanside I was running 107 low, and I've been running 106 highs before. So I think that pace is something I should not easily be able to transform, but like be able to do. But the thing is, Alex was running 2:11, I think, with blowing up, and that's another thing. Then going into a race and trying to do 2:11 the safe way. So I think he was on pace for his target, wasn't it like 07 or something, 08? And that's a different way of running the race, because then you also need to go more aggressively out in the beginning. And yeah, he's definitely having a huge potential, and it's cool that he's trying to explore a little bit more outside of the Olympic distance racing that he's been doing so well.
I know I asked you on a podcast last year about whether you were excited for him to come up, and you said, "Oh, he's probably not going to do that. He'll stay with Olympic distance." And he certainly said that to reporters in the post race, that he was going to stay at least till LA. But I think he didn't discount coming up to Ironman. So maybe we get to see you two lock horns in Ironman later down the line.
Yeah, that would be an epic. And you have already like more guys who is sort of stepping a foot into longer distance. Like you had Hayden Wild last year, and like if you compare Hayden to Hayden Wild and Alex, it seems like Hayden is more like showing interest of going into long course. And I guess the motivation for doing the Ironman distance isn't something every short course athlete is having. Like typically, like you might be like extremely driven for the intensity that it's in short course, and then you might be some like Hayden or myself or Gustav and maybe even Martin Van Riel, who's having that second dream of the Ironman distance as well. And so it's not like an automatic that if you're performing well in short course or Olympic distance, you can do it well over 4 times the distance.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Mate, that's been great. We've really enjoyed this, and from all the fans, congratulations again. And I'm sure we'll hear from you again on this podcast series. Well, I know we will. And otherwise, happy training, and we'll be watching in Aix-en-Provence.
Thank you so much. See you around.
So thanks for those listeners who've been listening. Please do rate the podcast if you haven't. Of course, subscribe if you haven't as well, and share this with somebody who'd be interested to hear it. And that is it from this episode of The Norwegian Method.
The Norwegian Method.